Good day, my dear students. So, how are you today? I hope you are fine. So, before I start our new topic for today, I assume that you already know the six trigonometric ratios. So, what are the six trigonometric ratios? Okay, so the six trigonometric ratios, we have the sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So today we're going to discuss about how to illustrate the angles of elevation and angles of depression. Are you ready? Okay, so since you're ready, I will now present the objectives. So at the end of this lesson, you were able to identify the angles of elevation and angles of depression, define the angles of elevation and the angles of depression, differentiate the angles of elevation and angles of depression, and illustrate the angles of elevation and the angles of depression. Okay, so we have here an activity wherein you're going to find two objects or structures outside in your house that are at your eye level and list them on the table and draw. Next is you're going to find again two objects or structures outside in your house that are above at your eye level and list them on the table and you're going to draw. Okay, so the last one, you're going to find objects or structures outside in your house that are below at your eye level and list them on the table and draw. Later, you're going to know what are the connections of this activity to our new topic today. Okay, so let's define what is angle of elevation and angle of depression. Okay, so let's define first what is line of sight. So when we say line of sight, it is an imaginary line that your eye follows when looking at something. So in other words, the line of sight is an imaginary line that connects the eye of an observer to the object being observed, and that object could be a person, thing, or animal. So what is angle of elevation? So angle of elevation is the angle between the horizontal line and the line of sight when looking at the object above. So in other words, the angle of elevation is the angle from the horizontal to the line of sight of the observer to the object above. The angle of depression, we can say that this is the angle of depression if it is the angle between the horizontal line and the line of sight when looking at the object below. Okay, so in other words, the angle of depression is the angle from the horizontal to the line of sight of an observer to the object below. To know more about the angle of elevation and angle of depression, so I want you to try these examples. So the first example, Tiny is watching the stars. The answer is angle of elevation. How can we say that this is an angle of elevation? It's because Tiny is the observer and the object being observed is the star. So this is an angle of elevation since we define the angle of elevation is the line of sight of the observer to the object above. The next one. Anna is looking into a 10-feet building. Again, this is an angle of elevation because the observer is looking the building, so the object is above on her. Fiona is looking the ball in the floor. So this is an example of angle of depression. It's because the observer is looking for an object below. Okay, so since you know already on how to identify, to define, to differentiate the angle of elevation and the angle of depression, so we are now here to illustrate the angle of elevation and the angle of depression. So I have here a problem number 1. So a nursery plants a new tree and attaches a guy wire to help support the tree while its roots take hold. An 8-foot wire is attached to the tree and to the stake in the ground. From the stake in the ground, the angle of elevation of the connection with the tree is 42 degrees. This is the illustration for problem number 1. So let's assume that the tree is vertical, making it perpendicular with the ground. A guy wire is a support wire used to hold a newly planted tree in place, preventing it from bending or uprooting during the high winds. The angle of elevation is from the ground up. So we have here the value of angle of elevation, 42 degrees. Okay, another problem. Problem number 2. From the top of a fire tower, a forest ranger sees his partner on the ground at the angle of depression of 40 degrees. The tower is 45 feet in height. So this is the illustration for problem number 2. So let's assume that the tower is vertical, making it perpendicular with the ground. The angle of depression is always outside of the triangle. Of course, notice the horizontal line in the angle of depression is parallel to the ground. The fact that the horizontal lines are always parallel guarantees that the alternate interior angles are equal in measure. This means that the angle of depression is equal to the angle of elevation. Now, in this illustration, the observer is looking to the object below. So this is an example of angle of depression. And there is a value of 40 degrees. Okay, so I hope you learn about the angle of elevation and the angle of depression. So to try if you really learn our topic for today, just click this link to access for our assessment. This is your teacher, Ma'am Marian. Goodbye, everyone.